The afternoon sun burned low over the quiet town of Charleston, South Carolina, glinting off the polished chrome of a 1934 Rolls-Royce Phantom II parked outside the grand estate of Richard Montgomery, a self-made billionaire with a reputation for pride and perfection. The car was his treasure, but it hadn't started in years, and now it would become part of a strange deal that would test one young man's worth. Across the long gravel driveway, Evan Carter, a 27-year-old mechanic with grease on his hands and fire in his heart, stood nervously beside his rusty pickup truck. He had come to the estate to deliver a repaired lawnmower engine, but fate had other plans. Inside, Richard's daughter Claire Montgomery, elegant yet kind-eyed, sat by the window watching her father and the young mechanic. She'd met Evan once before, briefly, when her car had broken down on a rainy night outside Charleston. He'd helped her without asking for anything. Since that moment, she hadn't forgotten him. When her father found out, however, he was furious. "Claire," he'd said sternly, "men like him fix cars, not futures. You deserve someone who owns the Rolls, not someone who repairs it." And now, the old man had found a way to make his point. "Tell you what, son," Richard said, his tone filled with challenge and superiority. "This Rolls-Royce hasn't run since before you were born. If you can bring it back to life in 3 days, without any outside help, I'll give you something better than payment." He paused dramatically. "You'll have my blessing to ask for my daughter's hand." Evan stared at him in disbelief. His mind raced. Was this man serious? Claire gasped from the porch, whispering, "Dad, that's insane." But her father ignored her, smirking as if it were a game. Then Evan smiled softly and said, "Sir, I don't fix cars for rewards. I fix them because every engine deserves another chance, just like people do." It wasn't the answer Richard expected. Over the next 3 days, the estate transformed into a quiet symphony of metal, oil, and hope. Evan worked tirelessly, sometimes through the night. His shirt soaked in sweat, his hands black with grease. The engine was ancient, parts rusted, circuits broken, wires missing. Finding replacements was nearly impossible, but Evan didn't give up. He scavenged, welded, and improvised. At one point, he even handcrafted a carburetor part using an old brass hinge from his own toolbox. Every sound of his wrench echoed through the estate like a heartbeat. Claire brought him coffee, towels, and quiet encouragement. "You don't have to do this," she whispered once. As he leaned over the open hood, he looked up, smiling faintly. "Maybe not, but some things and some people are worth proving wrong for." On the third evening, a storm rolled in over Charleston. Rain poured down in silver sheets as Evan stood beneath the garage awning, making the final adjustments. The Rolls' massive engine glistened under the flickering light. The clock struck midnight. Richard, watching from the porch with folded arms, called out, "Time's up, son. Maybe it's too much for someone like you." Evan wiped his hands and looked at the car. "Maybe," he said. "But let's see what she has to say about that." He turned the key. For a moment, nothing happened. Then vroom! The 1934 Rolls-Royce roared to life, its deep, steady growl filling the night air. Even the thunder seemed to pause in respect. Rainwater rolled off its silver hood as the headlights flickered on, shining bright, proud, alive. Claire gasped, covering her mouth. Her eyes shimmered with tears. Richard stepped forward, disbelief turning slowly into something softer, admiration. He approached the car, placed a trembling hand on the hood, and looked at Evan. "No one's been able to start this car for 20 years, he muttered. Evan shrugged lightly. Maybe she just needed someone to believe in her again. The next morning, the sun rose over the Montgomery estate. The air smelled of wet grass and redemption. Richard invited Evan for breakfast, something no one outside their circle had ever done. He spoke quietly, his pride slightly cracked. "You know, son," he said, "I thought you were just another dreamer with dirty hands. But you've got something most men with millions don't. Integrity." Evan nodded, sipping his coffee. "Thank you, sir. But I didn't do it to win anything." Richard smiled, almost reluctantly. "Well, that's why you deserve it the most." A few weeks later, the Rolls-Royce sat proudly outside Evan's new workshop, a gift from Richard himself. A small gold plaque hung near the door, Montgomery Motors, where legends run again, and Claire. She stood beside Evan that morning, laughter in her eyes as he adjusted the car's mirror. "Guess my dad got his wish," she teased. "The man who fixed the impossible also won my heart." He looked at her, his grin soft but sure. "I didn't fix it to win your hand, Claire, but I'd never trade the chance to hold it now." The two of them drove off in the roaring 1934 Rolls, the morning sunlight dancing over the chrome as the car and their story sped toward something new.